Our everyday decisions can either pull heaven down into our world or hell up into our world.
They're ripping children's bodies apart inside the womb and now outside of the womb. Yeah, I'm going to get angry.
North American pastors have not had to wrestle with a political theology for 250 years.
We must be political. It is a part of our piety to be so.
Hey, welcome to Resurge Season 1 with me, Josh Howerton, and Pastor Josh McPherson. The ground is radically shifting in our culture, and we believe that we are sitting on the greatest opportunity for the church in our lifetime for people who understand what's shifting and have the will to seize it. Because these conversations, heads up, are about some radical shifts in culture and ministry philosophy, a couple of these episodes are going to get a little spicy, and we have some very interesting guests that are going to hop on as well. Our heartbeat is to see reformation and revival for a resurgence of the church in our day. This is going to be a test drive, and it will decide whether or not to do more seasons based on engagement. So if this is helpful to you, if you could rate, review, or share, that would let us know it's helpful. That said, welcome to Resurge Season 1. We don't even need an intro music.
Yeah, we are our theme song, man. Oh, here we go. Episode 3 of the podcast that is yet to be named.
Yeah, that which shall not be named.
Yeah, that's right. The Josh and Josh podcast. We're looking at what it looks like to build a negative world church. A church that's built for war. A church that's built to...
I'm sorry. A lot of coffee.
What's the green guy in Star Wars?
That sounded weird. Do we need to start over? No, go ahead.
Okay.
This is gold.
Yeah, oh man, we're going to love this stuff. Us acting like junior high girls. Okay.
Bro, never mind. Keep going.
Yeah. How to build a negative world church. Be a saphead.
You got to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So building a church that's prepared to thrive in a negative world reality. And there's layers to it. And so a lot of guys have come into a context where they are inheriting a church, a staff, a congregation, a board that was built for positive or neutral world. And now they're realizing that framework, that mindset mentality, the old laws, the old principles, they don't work anymore and they're not sure what to do. And so we've done one episode kind of framing the reality of negative world, reality that we're in, using Aaron Rand's taxonomy. You unpack really well. We are now in a world where we are not loved and adored. We're not indifferent to the world around us. We are now hated as the enemy. One of the questions I find it very helpful for pastors to ask is, you need to wrestle with, what does it look like for me to lead a church in a nation that's under the wrath of God? Because you look at the world differently that way. So we've hit on negative world reality.
I just want to interject something.
Yeah.
Like that everyone needs to wrestle with, that's the nation they're in.
Yes.
Like, and if you need any help, just pause the pod. Go read Romans 1.
That's right.
And by the end of your time, you'll realize, right. I do need to figure out how to...
That's exactly right. Those things that we used to look to as institutions at the center of our communities that could be trusted have in many ways become they not only act in such a way as to receive the judgment of God. I think many of those institutions have actually become a form of the wrath of God on us.
We're treating Romans 1 like a to-do list.
That's exactly right. And we're aggressively...
We're checking the boxes. We're at the very end.
Dude, do you want to peel off real quick and tell me the story you told me earlier about the example of, because I mentioned in a sermon, or we're off track. Let me frame. Let me frame it real quick. Yeah. And we hit negative world.
Yeah.
And then last pod was building out your family for negative world. So how to lead your wife and lead your kids. Today we're going to talk about governance and staff.
Yeah.
If you don't get governance and staff right, it's not going to be good. But the reality we're living in a negative world is you have to wrestle with and contend with. And this is tough. This is hard for me to say. I told you this. I'm the T-shirt guy. I got 17 of my 21 T-shirts in my closet have American flag on the sleeve. You cut me, I bleed red, white, and blue. I am proud to be an American.
Same.
As every Christian should be any nation they're in. Mm-hmm. I think patriotism is biblical and good for the world. You should love the nation you're in like you love the family you're in and want to work for it to be stronger and better. But what I've been wrestling with is, hey, you know what? We may not always be the good guys.
Dude, this is tough. I'm a Rocky IV guy.
Yeah, man.
The guy with the American flag on the shorts is the good guy, and the guy with the Russian flag on his shorts is the bad guy. It's like, I'm all in.
That's right. So contending with the reality that America may no longer be the good guy is something pastors must wrestle with, because the implications for America going off the rails are cataclysmic and global, okay? Germany went off the rails, and it cost hundreds of thousands of lives to to arrest its fall and get it back on track. Bro, I believe there are Christians all over the world praying for God's mercy to keep America from going off the rails. If we go off the rails, what we could aggressively fund and export is a cancer that would metastasize around the globe.
Which is already happening.
So tell me that story.
Dude, this blew me away.
Wild.
So you said that to me. You were like, dude, I'm kind of starting to think like we may have to wrestle with in our generation. Oops. Our nation became the bad guys, and it just kind of lodged in me like, I don't know,
Yeah.
So we had this guy come in to speak at Lake Point in Espanol. Shout out to Lake Point in Espanol.
Lake Fantasy?
Lake Point in Espanol.
Lake Point in Espanol.
Yeah, Lake Point in Espanol. Pastor Paul Lewis.
The man.
Legend.
Yep.
So this pastor comes in from Peru. Guy is also a legend.
Yes.
I'm not going to say his name. I don't know if I have permission to tell the story. So
Okay. Now the context of this is like we're months leading up to the presidential election.
yeah, that's
Right.
right. This was like a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
So he comes in.
So as of
and
this recording, we're this side of the election.
14 days, 13 days.
13, 14 days.
So he comes in, and I was just curious. Somehow it came up. I think he asked me, hey, how are you leading through the election season? I ended up asking him, do you guys keep up with American politics? He's like, oh, yeah, very closely. I was like, oh, interesting. Like, tell me why. He tells me why. And then I just asked him, oh, so like, I'm curious, how do American politics affect you? Dude, this will send chills down your spine.
Yeah.
He starts telling this story that the United States currently sends significant amounts of financial foreign aid to his country.
That they depend on.
Yeah. But what America is currently doing is in order to qualify for that foreign aid, that country has to check certain boxes. Some of those boxes are around LGBT ideology, gender ideology, queer theory.
Bro.
And so in his country, now Hispanic countries in general, they have a beautiful family-centeredness.
Yes.
A beautiful
Yes.
family-centeredness.
Yep.
Like we could probably take a page out of that book, by the way.
A lot. Yep. Yep.
And a beautiful, so like they like traditional biblical structure of family.
Yep.
That's big to them.
That's right.
So he's like, well, dude, what's happening right now is that in my nation, in order to qualify for this foreign aid, we got to check some of these gender ideology, queer theory boxes. So he tells me this story of his 11-year-old that's into government schools down there. She comes home having just gotten taught LGBT ideology that no parent anywhere down there wants their kid getting.
Oh!
But their nation had to put it into the school system in order to get government aid from what nation? The United States of America. So now, hey, what's our export?
Bro.
Destructive, godless, queer theory, gender ideology. That's what we're exporting around the world.
We're holding them hostage, requiring them to embrace perversion before we help them. Yeah. That's the very name. That's the very definition of evil.
Yes. Well, now, and let me just say, I'm sure somebody will probably get in and let me Google it. I'm sure there's some nuance, but whatever. That's a thing.
Yep.
That's a thing. I'll give you another one.
Yep.
Can I do another one?
I don't think I can handle much more of this.
I'll do one more, and then we'll move on. Hey, if you're listening, what we're going to do real quick is, hey, in positive world, you were in peacetime.
That's right.
In negative world, you're in wartime.
That's right.
You got to build your church different. So here in about 30 seconds, we're going to get into that.
We'll get there.
But I'll tell one other story. So, and I will name this guy because I've heard him talk about this. Pastor David Potier, who is a total stud.
Oh, yeah. French guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
French-Canadian.
French-Canadian.
He's up there in Montreal. Dude, God's doing like a massive outpouring of the Holy Spirit.
Intense.
He's a monster.
Yeah.
He's a spirit-filled, gospel-preaching monster.
He's a war maker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, dude, there are like a couple thousand people in Montreal.
Yeah.
Like, more secular than, you know.
Dude, I asked him when he learned to speak English. He goes, well, when we planted the church.
Yeah.
I knew it'd be important. The dude learned a new language.
He's a monster.
Yeah, total beast.
Like, okay, so David Potier. So he tells me this because he keeps up with American politics too for the same reason. And he's explaining, he tells me a story that he's like, dude, here's what happens to us in Canada. I'm speaking as him.
Yeah.
He goes, man, so like down in some like progressive college think tank down in, these are his words, not mine.
Yeah,
so whatever.
Yeah.
He's like down in some progressive college think tank in California or Washington. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's what we
he
do.
goes, what somebody does on some college campus is they come up with some like critical theory or down there in some
stupid idea.
think tank, college, super secular progressive ideology. And this is what he says. Now, and he says, so in America, you guys have enough Christians with biblical convictions, or people have been influenced by it, conservatives, whatever you want to call them. you have enough people in America to oppose that ideology. He goes, in Canada, we don't.
Wide open.
So somebody creates this destructive ideology on some college campus in your country doesn't get ransacked by it, but everybody in our country, because there are no Christians to oppose it, just wildfire. We just adopt it.
Embraces it.
And it destroys our country, our family, all these things. Wow. So, dude, it is like having to process, we're kind of the bad guys.
Yeah.
On the global stage in some ways is
Bro, you think about
weird.
For those much is given, much is required. And you think about the prosperity that has come to the land of America in direct response to America's founders and founding documents being built on a biblical worldview. Inarguable, not even controversial, plainly spoken by the founders. They weren't all ranked deists. Many of them were Bible-believing, Jesus-loving, blood-bought, spirit-filled men, good men. And they built into the Constitution, they built into the framework of the Declaration in the Bill of Rights, a biblical framework. And Isaiah 33, the Lord is our lawmaker, He is our judge, He is our king. 3 branches of government as a reflection of the image of God and how He leads the nation of Israel. It's everywhere,
all right there.
right? And so as a result of that framework, God pours out, I believe, His blessing on our nation in ways the world has never seen, to where we can send nuclear-powered aircraft carriers anywhere the world over. And when we show up, it's good news for the good guys and bad news for the bad guys. That is no longer the case. And the testimony of guys coming out of special ops and 3-lettered alphabet soup agency organizations, they're like, I was increasingly questioning what we were doing and why we were doing it. Unrighteousness at the top ripples through the whole organization, family, church, nation. And now you think of what we're exporting, the toxicity and cancerous nature of the evil we're exporting, it's affecting the globe. And I believe in part God will hold the church in America responsible for our silence. Because silence in the face of lies is to participate in and perpetuate that lie. And so these are not small things that we're calling the Church of America to. We want to encourage, instill, challenge men with courage and backbone, to challenge them to think about how God might call them to speak in the world, because we have to rethink about, I know we are so off track now. I'll stop here in 30 seconds. Take 2.
Nope, keep going.
But bro, politics matter.
Yeah.
Because the kingdom of God does not hover a mile above the earth. It lands in our sexuality, in our relationships, in our vocations, in our professions, in our entertainment, and in how we understand authority structures to be best for the flourishing of humanity in politics. So,
shameless plug. Yeah. We did a 70-minute episode on faith and politics that people can go find. I strongly recommend it, not because of what I said, but because you've got some gold in there. And obviously neither of us are saying, America has we've been perfect with our use of it. I just caveat. Yep. You know how the internet is. So that's not what we're saying.
Yeah. But we're not talking to those folks anyways, are we?
No, we're not. You can't do that in a negative world. That's impossible.
No. Yeah, we'll get to that. How to handle internet mobbing. 2 other resources. I did a 5-week series on Jesus and politics. And then you did a really, really good sermon on, what'd you call it, Wake Up Church? Or
I did How to Vote Like Jesus.
Yeah. So I did 4 sermons on Jesus and politics, understanding government and governance in nations from the perspective of the Bible, and then a final sermon on how to vote like a Christian.
Now, we are totally off track now, but I will say we should do an episode because I actually think this is biblical. I think, one unique little aspect of that little taxonomy, positive, negative world.
Right.
In positive world, in general, the government was aligned with the church.
Yes.
And the very nature of negative world is that we will probably expect to see increasing misalignment and conflict between government and church. And the reason I say that's biblical is when you go through the book of Acts, you've obviously pointed this out. There are a significant number of tension points between the government and the servants of God.
It's the underlying story of the entire book of Acts.
And in some ways, you and Mark have pointed this out, God versus government. You can really trace that thread through the whole Bible. So anyway, what you start seeing in Acts is when Paul's in negative world, that's when he's like, dude, I gotta have a political theology underneath me. I gotta know when is the spot where, where Paul goes, I appeal to my rights as a Roman citizen.
Yep.
There's I do think we're so off track, but this is kind of fun. I do think, honestly, what do you think about this?
Okay.
What I've been telling some of our team is we're
going to re-record the whole intro.
This is fine. We'll get into what we're going to say in a second. It's going to be shorter. I think part of the reason that pastors right now are really struggling with how to handle this election season, and you're getting a ton of gaslighting. That's Christian nationalism. 99% of those accusations are totally ridiculous.
Step into it. Yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I love our nation.
Yeah,
end of story.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Yep.
Step into partisan too. You're being partisan. Yes.
I think part of the reason that pastors are struggling so bad is North American pastors have not had to wrestle with a political theology for 250 years.
That's right.
It's like we've been coasting off the benefits of pastors 250 years ago, setting things up well.
Yep.
And it's now breaking down to the point where it's like, now that's not to say, again, that there's never been conflict and the government always got it aligned, But in general, it's like, I think guys are having to develop some muscles around political theology that they haven't had to exercise in a couple centuries.
That's right.
So do we want to talk about wartime minute?
Oh my gosh, bro, there's so much to go there. It's like when the church stops speaking into the political realm, a government loses its conscience. So the three spheres of human sovereignty, the family, the church, and the civil magistrate, it's not the church's job to educate and provide for the welfare of the family. That's the family's job. Neither is it the church's job to chase down bad guys and protect our borders. That's the government's job. It's the church's job to preach righteousness and holiness and the moral law of God so the hand of the Father and the hand of the civil magistrate can be strengthened to do their jobs.
Abraham Kuyper spheres.
Yeah. So when the church stops doing her job, the other spheres stop doing theirs. So what happens? The government starts doing the family's job. We'll raise your kid. We'll provide for the welfare of the family. We'll do that. And they appeal to the laziness of our humanity or of our flesh, like, hey, that's great. I'll send my kids to the government, and they can tell them how math works, because apparently it's racist now. And they can tell them about history, whether or not it's accurate to reality. And they can tell them about all these kind of things. And you can't learn subject in school apart from God and think you know that subject, because all subjects are under the rule and reign of God. So politics matters. Speaking into politics with clarity matters. Christians got to think better. And if you think it's odd to talk about politics from the pulpit, realize you're the one out of step with history.
That's it. Yeah. This has really dawned on me recently.
Yeah. So the first sermon of my series, Jesus and Politics, was number one reason that we should talk about Jesus and politics is because it's an expression of obeying the first command, to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, the one who is over all things. Number two, it's an expression of how we love or how we obey the second command, which is love our neighbor as ourself. And one of the ways we can love our corporate neighbors is to ensure righteousness is empowered to make decisions that will align with the moral law of God to bring about people's flourishing. I was at an airport a couple of days ago looking at all these people at the airport and had the thought, would all these people's lives be categorically orders of magnitude better or worse if Christians were in power or non-Christians were in power, or if people were in positions of authority who aligned with the moral law of God, or people who were in positions of power who didn't align with the moral law of God? We have an answer for that in the book of Proverbs.
Duh.
Yeah. When righteousness
the righteous are in authority,
right?
When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, people groan.
That's right. So it would be everyone's life I'm looking at, whether or not they agree with my worldview, all of their life would get better in every area of their life if righteousness was in power and the righteous moral law of God was being followed. So reason number one, we talk about politics because we follow that Jesus who's Lord over all politics. Reason number two, it's how we love our neighbor. And reason number three, we don't want to be out of step with heaven and history. And the fact of the matter is the vast majority of human history post Pentecost, the last 2,000 years, has been men wrestling with the tension of the kingdom of God clashing with the kingdom of men and what that looks like. And when we step out of that space, we're just not being faithful to do our job.
Yeah, it's like, this is not, We're so off, but this is fun.
We can wrap this episode.
Yeah, dude,
start over again.
It's kind of, this was honestly a conviction for me that I had not developed. But it's like, I don't know how you can read about Daniel, Nehemiah, Esther, John the Baptist, et cetera, and think, oh, and I should stay out of politics. Yeah. I shouldn't talk about politics.
Yeah, okay, dude, we're here, so let's just scrap where we're going. Let's just talk
about this.
Let's give us 10 more minutes, and we'll wrap and we'll come back.
Yeah, it's fine.
So we'll do governance and staff for Negative World next episode.
That's great.
Right here. Walk through, and I forget the guy's name. You said he's a wonderful pastor, Rob Ketterling.
Oh, yeah. What chapter of Daniel are you in?
What chapter? Yeah, talk through that. It's so
All right,
good.
if we had prepared for this episode, I'd be better at this.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We have never prepared for any episode.
But I at least jot some
I would
things
like
down.
to tell a story. Josh and I did hosted a core to which I texted and called repeatedly, what are we going to do? How should I prepare? No, it'll be great. No preparation. We'll bump you. It'll be great. So no prep.
And it was great.
Here's the story. We show up and Josh goes, hey, I'll start and then you can riff on this topic. He opens up his computer, 6 pages of notes, bro, that you have not prepared.
That's not true.
I had to go
That's
cold
not
turkey.
True. That's
that
not
is
true.
so true.
No, dude.
I would like to be backed up by the men of our cohort.
No,
this is true
dude.
story.
That's just because I keep iPhone notes on everything. That's just stuff that I already had categorized.
You're like, we'll just shoot from the hip as you pull out your pages of notes. Total dog move. Anyways,
amazing. Okay.
Rob Ketterling.
First of all,
Daniel taxonomy.
First of all, everyone should be paying attention to Pastor Rob Ketterling.
Okay.
That dude
where is he from?
He's up in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Spirit-filled man. I think he's an AOG pastor.
Let's go.
Convictional dude. Like stealing his spine.
Yeah.
People don't realize, a lot of people don't, dude, Minneapolis is about as secular progressive with aggression.
Dude, flashpoint for Black Lives Matter, BLM, George Floyd.
Well, and massive LGBT advocacy city. Massive.
Bro, what's crazy
when I went over there, it was rainbow flags everywhere.
Bro, isn't it crazy that I won't say that. There are prominent.
Yeah, so anyway, I like Rob, prominent AOG dude, convictional, stealing his spine. Everyone needs to be paying attention to Rob.
Okay.
Wonderful man. So Rob preached a sermon called what chapter of Daniel are you in?
Yes.
So I'm going to butcher it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like if you're a pastor, this will preach, bro.
Yeah.
This will preach.
Yep.
So he goes.
What's so good about it? I'll set it up with this. It's nuanced in the sense that you have one man responding differently based on the time that he's in, which is so helpful.
Okay.
Go.
Hey, well, actually, wait.
I'll talk. Will you pull it up?
Yeah, I think I can find it.
So, anyways, there was this one time.
You jerk. Hang on.
So, what Josh is going to do in a moment here when he pulls up his notes that he never lets me work from.
You stop it. Hang on. I'm going to find it, and it's going to be so good.
Do not edit this. Do not cut this out. We were going to sit here and watch Josh desperately fish for notes.
Hang on. No, I'm going to find it. All right. So, Rob.
So, what Rob did was in a sermon, he preached to his church in Minneapolis. Because he's a pastor you should follow in Minneapolis.
I'm almost there.
Do not edit this out.
Dang it, dude. I don't have it. All right, so let me try. Let me go for it.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
Here we go.
Welcome to my world.
All right, so he goes, all right, what chapter of Daniel are you in?
Yeah.
The book of Daniel obviously begins with him being carried off in exile.
Yep.
So really what you could do is the book begins with Daniel and his buddies in Israel.
Yep.
This is positive world.
Yes.
This is where you have a righteous government.
Yes.
Led by generally, we all know the kings were flawed, blah, blah, blah. Righteous government, righteous, leaders.
Yeah.
When you're in Daniel chapter 0.
Yeah.
What you do is you need to support. Let's just say that you support righteous leaders.
There you go.
You support righteous government.
Yep.
All right. You step forward. At the beginning of Daniel, they're there and they're trying to assimilate them. He's now in a place with unrighteous leaders, unrighteous government.
Yes.
They're trying to assimilate them. They're not criminalizing them, but they're trying to assimilate them.
That's right.
So where he needed to support here, now what he needs to do is he needs to stand out.
Yes.
I'm in Daniel chapter 1 and 2. I need to stand, Daniel chapter 1.
Yep.
I need to stand out.
Yep.
And honestly, that's a little bit of neutral world.
Yep.
Okay, man, they're doing this thing over there.
Yep.
I need to stand out.
Yep.
All right. But then all of a sudden we're making idols and we're telling everyone to bow down. This is when the government begins to command you to do things God forbids,
Yes.
or ask you to go in your office and affirm things.
That's right.
That God says, man, you can't affirm that.
That's right.
And in that situation, what his buddies do is they stand up.
That's right.
So I needed to stand out.
Everyone bow down.
But you stand up.
We stand up.
No, I'm drawing a line in the sand.
That's right.
There are things I will not do.
That's right.
I will not do that.
That's right.
I stand up.
That's right. This is so good.
Then you get later, and I can't remember exactly what chapter. Then the government begins. Remember what they do is they start enacting laws, legislation to criminalize faithful behavior. No, Daniel, it's actually against the law for you to pray.
Thought crimes.
Thought crimes. Dude, there was a guy arrested in Britain this week.
That's right.
For praying silently outside of an abortion clinic.
That's
it's
right.
Like literally, you're going, these are chapters of Daniel. So, all right, help me out. So it was,
support, stand out,
stand up. Then, then it's stand against.
That's right.
Stand against. Daniel's like, nope, sorry.
That's right.
And this is a theology of civil disobedience. That, hey, because Jesus is Lord and not Caesar.
That's right.
Then what Christians are called to do is when the government forbids something God commands or commands something God forbids, then it's our job to respectfully, lovingly, humbly tell them to pound sand.
Graciously and boldly with increasing conviction and stubbornness. Say no. So you look at what I loved about that. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were done. What I loved about that, the progression of that, which you got it, by the way, bro. You did it. Your notes.
There we go. High five.
That was awesome. Support, stand out, stand up, stand against.
Stand against.
Right. We are in a season that's calling for at minimum standing up. And in many cases, standing against. And if you're working from a Daniel's 0 chapter playbook, why are you standing against that which we should support? Well, you're working with old assumptions. So it's interesting. We talked about the Aaron on your front porch, different tiers of political topics. So tier 3 topics are like those things you should have an informed opinion on. And those are things that we discuss and make decisions on. Should Taiwan have, preferred trade status? I don't know. Yeah, should the U.S. Postal Service use horses or planes to deliver the mail? We can all have opinions. Who really cares? That's tier 3. Tier 2 it goes from opinion category to wisdom category. Wisdom should be applied, or there could be some consequences here. In that area, in those topics, we can even debate. So those topics would be marked by things we agree on the outcome, but we don't agree how to get there. That is what marked American politics, I think, for a long time. Like, we know who we are, we agree on our destination, but I wildly disagree with how to get there. And stand in the legislation and rail whatever. And then they had the Reagan and Tipper O'Neill relationship where they were political opponents and best friends. Where it's like, do you think we should feed the poor? Yes. I agree. How do you think we should feed the poor? I wildly disagree. And then they go have a beer afterwards, right? And so that's where you need wisdom, and you find wisdom, plurality, debate, sharp intention, not going whole scale one side, wholesale the other. The tensions of the debate pulls you to the middle ground, which is typically the path of wisdom. That's great. Tier 1 political topics, we've gone from what you should have an opinion on, what we need wisdom for, to what requires obedience from people. So opinion, wisdom, obedience. And this is where we don't discuss, we don't debate, we declare, thus saith the Lord. And so positive world, neutral world, a vast majority of the political topics and things that were represented on any given political ticket were tier 3, tier 2, and maybe a sprinkling of tier 1. What's different about today is the vast majority of issues on the ticket represented both in the election that we're coming up on and local, they're almost all tier 1, bro.
They're first order issues.
Yeah, which is where we have to declare, thus saith the Lord.
Yeah.
And we're not compromising. That's the shift to make. So like tier 3 is like Daniel, 0, chapter 0, Daniel 1, Daniel 2. Tier 2, Daniel 3. Tier 1, stand against, right? That's helpful taxonomy. Do your whole the different leaders in the Old Testament real quick. Just riff on it. I think you put in your sermon. There's the Jehus and the Jezebels.
Oh yeah. First of all, that's not original to me. So
is that Visconti?
I don't think that's where it originally came from, but I'm trying to remember.
There's a guy everyone should follow. You like Ryan?
So I love Ryan.
Yeah,
he's a good friend.
Good man.
He's a good man. So here's a couple things. Okay. So you're talking about the leader taxonomy.
The different leaders in the Old Testament in relationship to.
How about this? Let's popcorn. Let's just popcorn maybe a couple like principles.
What topic are we on again?
We decided to apparently talk about church and politics.
Okay. How about a political understanding of the church's role in a negative world reality?
Great. Let's do that.
There you go.
We just titled the episode.
30 minutes in.
So a couple things, and so I'm going to quote you. Actually, you do it because I want to come out of your mouth.
Okay.
Hey, Josh. Man, it kind of feels like right now that you're telling the church to get more political.
Yes. I would disagree. The church has.
Can I
you keep looking over my shoulder? Who you?
I have fidgety eyes sometimes.
Okay. You probably do it better than me now. You've done it so much. Is the church is not getting more political. Politics have got more theological. We have not swerved into their lane. They have swerved into ours. And if we hit the brakes to let them come into our lane, everyone loses. Right. So we have not moved. So people are like, "Oh, you're supporting Trump or you're supporting GOP or whatever." No. Here's where I've been my entire life. Hey guys, if you're a lead pastor and found this interesting and helpful and you'd like to go a few layers deeper, Josh and I, along with a few special guests or two, are going to be hosting a closed door, no cameras, no recordings, very candid cohort later this year about how to apply what we're talking about in the ministry context of local churches. Now, if you're interested in applying, we're going to hard cap the number of people that can be a part of it so we can keep it relational and highly interactive. So we found these times to be both life-giving and deeply productive and fruitful. If you and your wife would like to join us, text the word resurge to 20411 and we'll shoot you a short link with more info on how you can be a part of this very special closed door cohort. We'd love to see you there. This is the biblical worldview. And if a political party happens to swerve into our lane,
great, thank you.
We'll clap. Great job, guys. Yeah. Keep going. The second they swerve out,
swerve in our lane,
I'm on them.
You're talking about
mixed metaphors.
Yeah, that's right.
Not violating jurisdictions.
Alignment between ethical visions.
So the jurisdictional lanes always stay in your lane. Yeah. The metaphorical ideological lane metaphor. This is my worldview. If your politics happen to come in line with my worldview, I'm going to cheer for you. I'm going to support you because whether you're trying to use me, I don't care. If you implement policies in line with biblical worldview, everything gets better. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so like some pastors be like, "Oh, we're being used by the like what?" No. Like if a politician wants to implement policies in line with the worldview of the Bible, I am all in because everyone will benefit from that, right?
But they're just manipulating you to get your vote, Josh.
Bro, now you're just trying to
agitate me. No. I just. You want me to respond? Yeah. I just. So here's why I say this is important.
Pastor Josh, they're manipulating you to get your vote. What would you say?
I'd say, man, I sure hope so. Yeah. Thank you. That's how politics work. How politics works is a politician says, "Hey, I'll give you these policies if you give me your vote. Please and thank you."
100%.
Please and thank you.
1,000%. 100%.
I'm in.
That's how it works. So and that's part. It's like, and if you don't, I won't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And like part of the reason politics work or has typically worked in a constitutional republic where we're governed by a set of documents that espouses a moral worldview, and then we elect men and women to represent us in making decisions that align with that constitutional worldview, constitutional republic. In that world, the whole point is, hey, if you promise to do this and I support you and you don't, I'm going to hold you accountable. And I will say, we do not consent, and therein is the tension that was intended to keep this constitutional republic on the rails.
Yeah. So here, and some of this stuff is like to go back to something we said earlier. It's like pastors having having to develop some political theology that they haven't had to do for a couple hundred years.
Yep.
I just think what we're doing right now is like, dude, there's a couple there's these little curveballs that people throw at pastors to try to like confuse them and well, they're probably right, I should back down.
Right.
No, they're probably right, I should avoid it.
Yeah.
And so it's like what we're trying to do right here is let's diffuse some of those so you as a pastor know how to think about that kind of stuff.
There you go. Yeah.
So you were talking about the taxonomy of different types of leaders in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Because increasingly Christians are faced with this decision.
Yes.
Is people be like, hey man, there's corrupt leaders on both sides. We can't choose they'll throw the Charles Spurgeon quote at you of two evils choose neither.
Yes.
Okay, but not all evils are morally symmetrical.
I'm going to find a Charles Spurgeon quote. It's going to blow your socks off.
Go find it.
No, keep talking.
Yeah, go find it while you're talking. So, and this is not original to me. In the Old Testament, you really find three types of leaders. Mm-hmm. You have Josiah leaders. Josiah obviously saved at a young age, righteous king who celebrates and promotes righteousness. Yeah. You know the whole thing. Finds the book of the law, leads a national revival. Every mom in Israel could tell their son, I hope you grow up and be like Josiah someday. Yes. Full stop. Every Christian wants a Josiah leader to be able to vote for.
Yes.
We want that, right?
Yes, please.
But we don't always have that option. So there's a couple other types of leaders. The most wicked leaders in the Old Testament are Ahab and Jezebel. That's literally what the passage says. I'm not cherry picking. That's literally just what the passage says.
That's right.
The most wicked leaders ever had.
Yep.
Wicked leaders celebrate and promote wickedness.
That's right. They call good evil.
And evil good. That's right.
Isaiah 5.
And so, hey, what happens when wicked leaders rule is, people, children get ripped to pieces at 9 months old in the womb, and there's entire months of the nation's calendar to take pride in perversion and wickedness, and cities become full of lawlessness and
crime, poverty, entitlement,
open air drug markets,
destruction. We murder babies and we maim children.
Yeah, we call good evil and evil good.
Yeah.
And some Christians, well-meaning but naive, can sometimes think, well, there's two types of leaders, and those are the two choices.
Yeah.
And if there's no leaders that I can call Josiah, then everybody's in the Ahab and Jezebel category, and I can't support it.
That's right.
But actually, in the Old Testament, there's a third type of leader.
Yeah.
It's a Jehu.
Yep.
Jehu was a flawed leader that God used for some good purposes.
Yes.
So Jehu, God commissions and uses to execute judgment on Ahab and Jezebel.
Right.
He tears down the altars of Baal, turns them into a latrine, which is kind of awesome.
Yep.
I think that's
Super
hilarious
cool.
and awesome. Had a little prophetic humor to him.
Absolutely.
A little edge there.
Yep.
But he was a very flawed dude. He was very clearly a relationally, emotionally chaotic man.
Yeah.
And he allowed some forms of idol worship to continue in the nation.
Yep.
So it's just like getting in your head, like, hey, dude, let's not be naive. Let's understand, these different types of leaders.
Yep.
So everybody wants a Josiah,
Yep.
but sometimes your choice is between an Ahab Jezebel type leader,
That's right.
or a Jehu. And when you're faced with that decision, that choice becomes real obvious because it's better to tolerate a flawed leader used for some good purposes than for a nation, your children, and your children's children to suffer under the policies of wicked leaders.
That's right. That's right. One of the things I said in one of the 5 sermons I preached on Jesus and politics is one of the reasons we should care about politics as Christians is that we're charged from the Word of God to leave an inheritance for our children. Mm-hmm. And that inheritance is more than a financial inheritance. It's a spiritual inheritance. It's a relational inheritance. And it's a social inheritance.
Societal inheritance, yeah.
And the question is, will our society be better or worse because we lived in it? And if we get gaslit into silencing the prophetic voice of the church that was given for the sake of slowing the decay of society, we will be part and parcel responsible for handing our children a society that has decayed into further darkness rather than having slowed it. You want a Spurgeon quote?
Give the Spurgeon quote, and then I'll do a couple ways pastors get gaslit into not ever touching anything political, and then we can shut her down.
Okay. One of the thoughts I had is random. Is that what we've been increasingly addressing this leading up to 2024 political election cycle, and because I do think there's a lot on the line, and I think there's a lot to touch there on which we have. What was my question? Oh, we shouldn't stop talking about it after the election, no matter which way it goes. Because we have to increase the biblical political sophistication of our church and our churches so that we don't get here again. One of the reasons we've gotten here is we've stopped addressing these issues, and when we leave a vacuum, the enemy fills it. And so we need people who are more sophisticated civilians and citizens in a nation that has an incredible framework that we're about to lose. And here's the deal. It's going to be hard work to fight to keep it and get it back, but that's much less, it's much easier and less bloody than fighting to rebuild it from scratch. And the reality of it is our founders were paying less taxes and they were under less bureaucratic regulatory tyranny than we are currently when they said enough is enough. It's like we are putting up with more than our founders expected us to, and it's not helping anybody. So here's the Spurgeon quote: "The Prince of Preachers, okay? For a Christian minister to be an active partisan of Whigs or Tories, Democrats or Republicans, busy in canvassing and eloquent at public meetings for rival factions, would be for him of ill repute." So that's the quote that gets thrown around all the time, why Christians should be political. He doesn't end there. For the Christian to forget his heavenly citizenship and occupy himself about the objects of place hunters would be degrading to his high calling. But there are points of inevitable contact between the higher and the lower spheres, points where politics persist in coming into collision with our faith. And there we shall be traitors both to heaven and earth if we consult our comfort by slinking into the rear.
Dang.
Isn't that good? Till religion in England is entirely free from state patronage and control.
Which killed the church there, by the way.
That's right. Till the Anglican papacy ceases to be called the national religion.
Which killed the church there, by the way.
Till every man of every faith shall be equal before the eye of the law as to his religious rights. We cannot and dare not cease to be political.
Wow. Charles
Spurgeon.
in charge.
He's not done. Because we fear God
Yeah.
and desire his glory, we must be political. It is a part of our piety to be so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Woo!
I have not heard that before.
Isn't that powerful?
It is. Now, let me just, obviously, that didn't kill the church. There's still thriving churches there, but that you get my drift. That's amazing. Here's what I love about that.
Bro, he's calling out specific political issues of their day.
Yeah.
And he's saying until there is the freedom that only the gospel of Jesus Christ can bring to a nation, the church has an obligation to speak powerfully into the politics of its day.
Here's what I love about that. Like, I've heard it said, Martin Lloyd-Jones said that the chief, he didn't say chief, he said one of the characteristics of the best preachers is they put proportionate emphasis on the right things.
That's right.
There's the right balance.
That's right.
What I love about that quote is, I'll give a gentle warning. If you're a little more culturally oriented, there are guys who swerve. They just go full scale, and they're only doing air war, applying gospel to culture.
Yep.
And they lose their emphasis on ground war. Hey, dude, we're making like individual disciples and families.
Yep.
And then they start putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yep.
You see what I did there? They put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Very
honestly,
witty.
dude, it jacks up their whole ministry.
100%.
What I love about what he
bro,
did.
I intuitively pull back from guys like that. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, it does,
you know what
it's
I mean?
nasty.
Like, start every service with, I pledge allegiance to the flag. It's like, bro, no.
When it's their brain gets it's like water running through a rivulet. It's like all of a sudden that's the only way they can think about a text. So anyway, don't become that guy.
No.
We're making disciples. We're building families.
And bro, we're not angry.
Not angry, dude.
You know what I mean? Like now, there are moments when we will be prophetic, and in the Spirit of God, a righteous anger. Like somebody here said it, I was like, gosh, it seemed like the last couple of sermons you're just angry. Bro, we were talking about abortion and maiming children of their sexual organs. Yeah. I'm angry. And if you're not angry, something's broken. They're ripping children's bodies apart inside the womb and now outside of the womb. Yeah. And they're using my dollars to fund it. I'm going to get angry. If I lack anger, God might have words with me.
Abraham Lincoln sounded angry sometimes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But the ethos of the kingdom in our homes is like we're not prophets all day long at Starbucks. Like we're happy.
Yeah.
Right. And so the guys that what you do that, they just tend to their general posture is just anger and attack. And bro, that's just not the ethos of the kingdom. Anyways,
It's not.
you were saying you were going somewhere. I interrupted you.
I was just going to go. Why not? I was going to potentially close it out, unless we want to take a different direction, on a couple of the things that get thrown at pastors to gaslight them.
Yeah. I feel like you answer these better than me, but you ask.
I'm looking at it.
You ask, and I'll kick back to you if I don't.
Okay. Hey, pastor, you shouldn't mess with that stuff. Separation of church and state. Keep your religion out of politics. Well, you kind of just did that with the Spurgeon quote.
Yeah, so constitutionally, it's nowhere in the Constitution, nowhere in the Declaration of Independence. It was penned in a letter written by Thomas Jefferson while he's in Europe
to the Danbury Baptist Association.
Baptist, saying, "Hey, here's why we put a wall of separation between the church and the state. It was to ensure that the state did not co-opt the church to wield it for abuse. They did not even consider the fact that the church would be kept out of the state because they built our Constitution on the church itself. 7 of the 13 states had like explicitly Christian language built into their constitutions. You couldn't run for office or hold office unless you gave an affirmation of the Trinitarian Godhead and the gospel of a substitutionary atoning work of Jesus Christ. Like you weren't fit for office, right? And so the idea was they didn't want to federalize into our Constitution one flavor of Protestantism. They would isolate another. So it's like, okay, look here, we're gonna you can do what you want, but we want to ensure, because they had just come from England, where England had, of course, co-opted the church, and the church, big government and big church had come together to like abuse people. It's like, no. We need a government that's built on the foundation of the church, and we need the church to have the freedom to speak into government as its conscience. And so how it gets wielded today is the complete opposite of the intention of the First Amendment. And more so, people who say that are essentially saying, no. Separation of church and state, you can't speak into the state. What they're saying is, I get to espouse my worldview of secularism. You can't espouse your worldview of Christianity.
That's the most important thing for people to realize.
Yep.
When somebody says that to a Christian, what they're really saying is, I'm allowed to advocate for my beliefs in the public square, but you're not allowed to advocate for yours.
Yeah, and there is no
insanity.
neutrality in legislation. All this legislation is legislating some form of morality, and if it's not built on the foundation of Christianity, it's demonic.
Yeah. There you go. Separation of church and state does not mean a separation of righteousness and state, and it doesn't mean a separation of politics and religion.
Yes.
Separation of governments.
That's right.
It means the same dude that's the president of the nation shouldn't be the pope of the church.
Yep.
We already did the one. I'm going to run through a couple of these just real quick. Josh has the best answer to the church shouldn't get political. The church can get more political, politics should get more theological when the government moved past things like building roads and issuing driver's licenses to things like redefining marriage, erasing gender, and reframing infant murder as reproductive rights, and then indoctrinating everybody's kids into believing those things. The church didn't move, politics
They're
did.
in our lane.
Yeah.
Yep. It went from tier 3 to discuss, tier 2 to debate, to tier 1 where we declare, "Thus saith the Lord." You're in our lane now.
So here's another one. I'll do this one and then you can chime in.
Okay.
So because this is one, like this one bugs me. I see it so frequently.
Okay.
This is especially more progressive Christians. What they'll say is they'll label Christians voting for a party as Christian. They're just trying to grasp for power.
Yes.
So this one bugs me.
Okay.
So here's the thing. First of all, you got to acknowledge this. The whole vibe that Christians pursuing positions of authority is wrong. That comes from critical theory, not Christian theology.
Yes.
Critical theory divides the world. It sees the world through an oppressor lens.
That's right.
Whereas Christian theology sees the world through a sin-righteousness lens.
Yep.
So when you see the world through an oppressor lens, well, then whoever has power is bad.
That's right.
And whoever doesn't have power is good.
That's right.
But the Bible has nothing. Those are just not categories there. So power is like money in the Bible. It's morally neutral. There's nothing wrong with having it. What you do with it is either right or wrong. So I just say this. When somebody says, oh, Christians are just trying to grasp for power, I'm like, yep,
100,
hallelujah.
100%.
Hallelujah. Because if godly people don't lead, godless people do.
That's right.
So yeah, Christians should absolutely seek positions of authority.
Power can be wielded for abuse or wielded for good.
That's right.
And the ones who have the best chance of wielding it for good are those who are filled with the Spirit of God, who is good. So when you think about the concept of power, we've been made in the image of God, the God who is all-powerful. So it's good for a man to wield his power to protect his family, to wield his power to lead his home, to wield his power to influence his community, to wield his power to build a business, to wield his power to generate resources and funds and make money, to wield his power to lead and turn a nation. So the whole idea of that power is bad is a gaslighting maneuver by people who are trying to grasp power for themselves.
That's it.
It's just like
Bingo.
wild. It's just crazy.
You're trying to grasp power.
Yeah.
Please don't, so we can. That's essentially what's happening.
Yeah, you're trying to grasp power to abuse people.
Yeah.
So get out of the way so I can grasp power and abuse people.
That's right. That's right.
And the problem with the Marxist worldview is my buddy Pastor Adam, he got incredible content on it. He can riff on it for hours. And so I've just learned as I've listened for him, because he kind of dove into it. And we heard CRT in early 2020. I was like, Adam, get on it. He just like read every book on it, like he's just like a walking. But the irony of Marxism himself, like horrible marriage, wife died early, kids starved. He locked himself away and studied in some guy's home. He was living off the teat of a capitalist who was working hard and funding his work so he could build an ideology that would undermine the very tenets of capitalism itself, and it didn't work anywhere. It didn't work in his home. It didn't work in the country he was in. There was a crazy... Adam, off camera, throw me a fun fact about what was happening. Oh, here's what's crazy.
Yell to us, Adam.
He's in London. This is great. This is great. We just read this quote.
Yeah.
Karl Marx and Charles Spurgeon were peers.
What?
In the same city
I've never
at the
heard
same
that
time.
before.
Bro, Charles Spurgeon was thundering from the pulpit against the ideology of Karl Marx, real time.
What?
In the same city.
I've never
Am I
heard
getting that right? A direct quote.
Spurgeon said that?
Is that good?
Wait, I'm going to get that in the mic.
Yeah.
Spurgeon and Marx are contemporaries in London.
Yep.
Spurgeon is prophetically decrying a Marxist ideology, and he says, you can either preach bloody streets or a bloody cross. That's fire.
He said you can either preach a bloody cross, you'll get bloody streets.
You can either preach a bloody cross or you'll get bloody streets.
Yeah.
That's fire.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that wild?
So good.
And then you look at what happens in a Marxist worldview, it's all about revolution and overthrowing those in power.
Yeah.
So you defined it well. If you don't have power, you're the oppressed. If you have power, you're the oppressor.
Right.
And so what happens is the oppressed overthrow the oppressors, and then they become the oppressors
new oppressors,
themselves.
yeah.
And what happen is nothing changes. It just flips.
Yeah.
Who gets
Who's
to
doing
wield
the
the
oppressing,
stick.
yeah.
Different from redemption, right? That changes people's destiny. So bloody cross or bloody streets.
That's fire.
Isn't that
Okay,
good?
here's another one. We'll whip through these pretty quick.
That was good.
Think
something else, yell it out.
People say to you, you're just trying to impose your morality on other people. My response is yes.
100%.
Everyone in a democracy is voting for some of their beliefs that other people don't share.
Yeah.
All it takes is
I unashamedly believe that the more God's word is obeyed, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah.
Interrupt
So
you.
literally everyone in a democracy is trying to, quote, impose their morality on other people that don't share their morality.
Right.
All this takes to see through some of these is a case study.
Right.
So abortion is a great one.
Right.
People are like, you guys who are pro-life, you're just trying to impose your morality on the mom. Yep.
100%.
Yeah. And what pro-choice people do is that mom very violently imposes her morality on the baby.
Yeah.
So the question isn't whether somebody's trying to impose their morality on somebody else. The question is whose morality is getting imposed.
That's right.
So it's like, hey man, why don't we do the morality? Let's impose the morality that's best for family, society, human flourishing, and does not invite the judgment of God.
That's right. Yeah. It's like what if babies could shoot back? I mean, it's wild. That's a whole nother thing. But the whole concept of I don't have a problem. But like, this is wild. The My Body, My Choice crowd, where were they during forced vaccinations?
Oh.
One of the things you'll find in a secular worldview, it's wildly inconsistent, right?
Selectively applied principles.
Yeah. Grace for me, law for you.
Yeah. Rules for thee, not for me.
That's right. So my body, my choice when it comes to abortion. Your body, my choice when it comes to vaccinations.
Oh, wow.
It's wildly inconsistent. One of the things I think is self-authenticating about a Christian worldview, though imperfectly applied by followers of Jesus, is that it is intellectually satisfying. Or how did Keller say? Intellectually consistent, emotionally satisfying. It's consistent, right? It's not based on, and that's the thing is like when I'm arguing for a Christian worldview in the marketplace, I'm arguing for an authority source and in a morality source that's objectively above me, right? So like I'm not advocating for my morality, I'm advocating for God's morality.
God's morality, that's great.
And it's an important distinction to make is because I don't think that any of us should get to choose the morality. I think we should all submit to a higher a morality, and that's the moral law of God. So that's what we're arguing there. You got another question?
All right, we got to wrap this up because these people who are filming this, they got to go home.
They got to go
home.
home.
So let me whip through a couple of these. I'll do these real fast, and if there's anything you're like, hey, let me chime this in.
Copy that.
So people, tangential related, they'll say you can't legislate morality. And I'm like, bro, morality is literally the only thing that ever gets legislated.
That's right.
Like every law that has ever existed legislates a moral.
That's right. Because it's either working against evil or working for good. And you have to have a moral worldview that defines what is good and what is evil.
That's like Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote. It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can stop him from lynching me, and I think that's pretty important too.
Yes.
You know? So, yeah, that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to let you do this. And give me your best attempt at a 30-second response to.
Okay.
Josh, Jesus didn't focus on politics. He didn't. So you shouldn't focus on politics. My kingdom is not of this world, is what Jesus said. Mm-hmm. And then Jesus also said, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and to God what's God's. So stay out of politics, just focus on the spiritual thing. And Jesus didn't do this.
Jesus didn't get involved in politics because Jesus is Lord over all politics, number one. Jesus came not to align with the politics of man. He came to override the godless politics of man and enforce his own politics on humanity, the kingdom of God. When Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world, what he's telling Pilate is not that my kingdom is spiritual and hovers a mile above the earth. What he's saying is my authority comes from a place outside this world. You are so far below my pay grade, I am not obligated to answer your petty questions. When he says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, he's saying he made his case by pointing to the image of Caesar on the coin, and he says, give to whoever's image is on that coin, give him what is due. Whoever has my image, give them. He's saying humanity is mine, right? He's requiring that humanity aligns with his moral law. That's assumed in Romans 13. When he lays out the government's jurisdiction and responsibility, he's assuming that they would align with his moral law so they could actually do their job. And then lastly, I would point to the example.
Go back to the Caesar thing.
You said 30 seconds. So I'm like trying.
The Caesar thing.
Yeah.
So whoever bears the image of God belongs to God. So here's the point. Caesar belongs to God.
That's right.
Caesar is a man created in God's image. So Caesar belongs to God.
Yeah, it's like when Jesus did get in politics, I'm like, well, that's a weird way to say it. Like Jesus requires politics submit to him, right? And so like when you look at the church, the Church of Jesus Christ unravels the Roman Empire in 300 years, right? Because the work of the church is to slow the decay of the world, and it works if we view the kingdom of God not as hovering above the world, but landing square in the middle of it. And then lastly, I would just point to like the entire narrative of the Old Testament and New is, I believe, one of kingdoms clashing, God's kingdom and the world clashing. And most often when the kingdom of darkness clashes against the kingdom of God, it's done through tyrannical, rogue, godless governments in God-hating states. So the secular state warring against the image of God in man, like that's political. And so, like for instance, we've done a little bit, Daniel, Esther, all these stories, but then look at how many examples there are of civil disobedience in the Old Testament, from the Hebrew midwives to Samuel going to anoint David. And Samuel says, what if they stop me and ask what I'm doing? And God tells Samuel to lie.
Righteous deception.
Yeah. He's like, if they stop you, lie for the sake of getting the job done. And it's all through the Old Testament. So it's like you can't be biblical and not be political. We're born in a world where politics is a reality. We have to figure out how to bring our biblical Christianity into the political realm. How would you answer it?
You already did.
Okay.
Yeah, that
was I wandered for 2 minutes.
No, you were great.
Okay.
This is another one. Hey, let me whip through these just real fast. as soon as the pastor starts messing with some of these things, oh man, he's becoming a culture war Christian. You know, Nate Finocchio, who I really like. I really like a lot of Nathan Finocchio stuff. Do you pay attention? You need to.
I don't know him at all.
You need to. You should.
Is he online or?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's pointed out, like, I love this. He said, Europe exists because Christians, quote, engaged in the culture wars. Europe resisted Islamic invasion because the medieval church, quote, engaged in the culture wars. An American Revolution happened because Presbyterians, quote, engaged in the culture wars.
Yeah.
Chattel slavery was abolished and the civil rights movement happened because Christians like William Wilberforce and Martin Luther King Jr., quote, engaged in the culture wars. We should be more interested in the future of the church, but we should also provide a cultural future for our children in which they aren't surrounded by perversion, indoctrination, godlessness, opposition, and lawlessness.
Yep.
Pretty good right there.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yep. That's really good.
I'm going to skip that one. And then we already did that one. All right, we'll finish this with this one. Politics can't save anybody.
Yeah.
Hey, these guys are not saviors.
Yeah.
Even if the right guy person ends up in office, that's not going to save anybody. You can't save America.
Yeah. It's not politics' job to save America. I mean, that's not the function of the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
The function of the jurisdiction is to legislate laws that align with the moral law of God, to protect good people from evil, and to reward those who are righteous and protect the borders of a nation. So I don't understand the question.
Well, I like this is also Visconti.
Okay.
Whenever somebody says politics can't save anybody, the response is, from what?
There you go.
From what? Well,
Yeah,
it's true. Well, it's true that politics can't save anybody from hell. The book of James says that our everyday decisions can either pull heaven down into our world or hell up into our world.
I love that.
So politics can't save anybody from hell, but politics can save a society from pulling hell up into our city, states, and nations.
Poverty, crime.
Yeah, perversion, all the
100%.
things.
That's good.
So, hey, man, we need to shut her down. I think the big idea is, hey, let's keep the emphasis on the right syllable.
Yeah.
Yep. We are evangelists.
Yep.
We are church planters.
Yep.
We are pastors.
Yep.
But then, hey, dude, once we see people saved and churches planted,
Yep.
let's mobilize them for actionable good.
That's right.
In the world and society.
That's right. Having a negative world missiology in relationship to a more sophisticated political understanding is critical. And here's the last thing I'll say this. I'll hear people say sometimes, well, if I say those things or take a stand on those things, I won't be invited to the table in a very blue state or a very blue city.
I'm in a progressive city. I'd lose half my church if I...
Yeah.
And hey, let me just have compassion for that.
Yeah.
I understand. Dude, totally get it.
Yeah. I don't.
I do. I understand the emotional tension.
Yeah, 100%. But when they say things like that, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? If you were to preach a biblical ethic of sexuality, you'd lose half your church. Well, start pruning then. Do you even have a church of people who have an unbiblical worldview? Different topic. I don't want to sound harsh, but what I want to end it with, I'm trying to end this here, land a plane, Josh. Let's go. Get your feet up. Is if I come out strong like that, I'm going to be accused of being partisan.
Okay.
Jesus is partisan. I mean, like Jesus draws lines and Jesus takes a side.
Do you agree with me? I think it is not smart to endorse candidates. You're allowed to disagree with me. I think it's not smart to endorse candidates.
You mean from the pulpit or just in personal conversations?
From the pulpit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's...
I don't know.
Under normal circumstances, I don't think it's smart.
Yeah, I think if you're preaching a consistent biblical worldview, you won't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sorry, that's a tangent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't endorse politicians so much as I endorse policies.
Mm-hmm.
So I may vote for one guy this time, a different guy the next time, because I want to know if you've moved. I haven't moved.
Yeah.
So whoever swerves into my biblical worldview lane is going to get my support if they're consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I, bro?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, guys say I don't want to be partisan. It's like I don't think you can be prophetic without being partisan.
Yeah, we've talked about this. I think years and years ago, it was hey man, you can be partisan or you can be prophetic, but you can't be both.
That's right.
Well, that's true in one sense. I'd take a second to explain that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there are definitely moments where if you are unwilling to sound partisan, it's impossible for you to be prophetic.
That's better said, probably. It's
impossible for you to be prophetic in those moments.
If you're unwilling to be accused of sounding partisan, you will not be able to be prophetic. That's really good. So my struggle with is if I say those things, I'll be accused of being partisan and I'll lose a seat at the table. Another thing I've heard a lot is I want to work hard to restore the credibility of the church in my city. And I hear that and I think danger, because I do want my church to have a good reputation in the city, but I have to qualify that with what will I have to do to get that good reputation? Because that, I think, can be an Achilles heel to apostasy. Because if the highest goal for you and your church is to be liked in a community that's saturated in a negative world, you may end up having to compromise the king you're following to be liked by the world who hates him.
Wow.
So when I hear guys say, I wish I could say what you say and do what you do, but I just can't, my talent is too blue, and I'd lose a seat at the table, I want to say, why do you want a seat at that table? Why would we?
But wouldn't they? Now we need to finish this episode. But wouldn't they say so that I can be the type of influence on society that you just told me I should want to be?
Yeah, and that lacks any basic third grade logic.
Okay.
I want to be salt and light, but they don't like the salt or the light, so I keep it in the salt shaker and I took the battery out of the flashlight.
Wow.
But then they let me play. As long as I put a tape over the top of the salt shaker and take the battery out of the light, then let me come to the table. If I can't bring my salt and I can't bring the light, then I don't want to be at your table. And I think what Christians need to start thinking about more in this negative world reality, this is getting to the ark building episode, go build a better table and then invite them to it.
Okay. Let's shut it down.
If we're always playing on the world's turf and the world's terms, there's a danger we could sacrifice the king of the world's values.
Man.
That's my concern.
Well, let's chase the king together.
Well, let's go, my man.
All right, let's do our own outro music.
Da, 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 da. Hey guys, we hope you found this interesting and helpful. If it was, again, this is just a test drive. We'll decide whether or not to do more seasons based on your feedback. So we'd love it if you'd rate, review, and share this episode. Hope it was helpful, and we'd love to see you next week for the next episode of Research.